Let us create together a new national spirit of unity and trust. Your strength can compensate for my weakness, and your wisdom can help to minimize my mistakes. Let us learn together and laugh together and work together and pray together, confident that in the end we will triumph together in the right.
We are basically good people, we Americans. At our core, we want the best for ourselves, our families, and the people around us. But far too often, we are far too trusting, especially when it comes to electing those who will be making decisions for us. When time comes for us to cast our ballots for the right person, we spend more time deciding on the color of drapes for a new home, whether to buy LeBron James or Michael Jordan sneakers, or which new deodorant we want to try, the one that smells like a fresh mountain spring, or the one that has an aroma closer to fettuccine that's been baked on a sidewalk during a hot summer's day. For instance, in the case of one Jimmy Carter, America elected a man who had been the governor of Georgia, had a brother named Billy who epitomized the definition of redneck in the era and capitalized on his popularity by slapping his name on a beer, which I am told by those aficionados of the hops and barley was about as tasty and refreshing as the runoff effluent from the farming of said peanuts, and who, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan in 1979, reacted by restarting the Cold War and punishing American athletes who had worked their entire lives for one chance at competing in the Summer Olympics, by boycotting the Moscow Games that year, thus using people who had nothing to do with his failed policies as the only pawns he could play in a failed example of foreign policy. Jimmy Carter was elected president at a time when America was experiencing a true hangover from the Nixon years, the Watergate affair, Nixon's resignation, and the short substitute president of Gerald Ford, an honorable man in many ways, but still a reminder of how bad and duplicitous politicians could be. At the time, some concluded that in the wake of those years, almost anyone could have been elected president. Either way, the Carter years were marked with, in the opinion of many presidential historians, more failures than successes. But Jimmy Carter was and remains a very moral man, a God-fearing man, who perhaps far too often speaks from the heart when he should be verbalizing from his head. It happens to all of us from time to time. But for a man who won the Nobel Peace Prize, we should expect more, much more, when the subject is the current war undergoing what one can only hope is a permanent pause between Israel and Hamas. Need we remind anybody who and what Hamas admits themselves to be?
كيف كان اليهود يذبحون المسيحيين ليخلطوا دماءهم بفطيرهم المقدس؟ هذه ليست بدعة وهمية أو فيلم سينمائي، هذه حقيقة.
So do you believe that Jews used to slaughter Christians to mix their blood to bake matzahs?
You have to ask that for the church which claims that, this is the fact. You cut the words, not you. The Israelis, in memory, they cut the facts and they start this propaganda to say that they are innocent. They want to cover the genocide which is happening in Gaza now.
These are terrorists, hold no value to life, human or otherwise. These are people, and some would not even want to call them people, who dig tunnels, celebrate their murder of Jews with social media pictures, and at the same time produce instructional educational videos on their broadcast network to teach their young how to kill. In an analysis he co-wrote for the publication Foreign Policy and released this week, the former president praised Hamas for making a major concession in April when they entered into an agreement with the Palestinian Authority, an agreement with no teeth and not one shred of sincerity. He also stated that Hamas is a legitimate political actor, credited Hamas with adopting their government's pledge of nonviolence in recognition of Israel, and he denounced Israel as the culprit in the current conflict. Americans tend to trust our leaders. But is there any wonder why our allies don't trust us when they know these are the misguided, vacuous people who lead us? And that is telling it like it is. Next hour on MidPoint, the man who knows from ground level the situation and dangers in Afghanistan. That and much more coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.